My fellow citizens of all nations, the world of Naruto. I'm going to talk about it and review the entire world in this video right now, and I'm going to sort of share my philosophical views about it because, and I assume a lot of people have watched this show and were disappointed about how these things have gone. And I'm going to basically review about the philosophical concept of certain ideologies in this show and how it affected entirely. But first of all, before I start to talk about philosophy, political stuff about the show, it's important to establish few facts. A lot of things are either doesn't make any sense based on what we know about the story, or just is hard to explain or hard to believe. And there are a lot of such things. I will just talk about a few things that just come to my mind. First of all, Naruto. In early series, Naruto is represented as a sort of this underdog that's going to save the world, and he is still an underdog. That's how Naruto is represented. But as story progresses, first of all, we realize that he's not an underdog at all. Yes, he's treated horribly, but at the end we figure out that he's reincarnation of some great being, and also a son of a Hokage, and also sort of so many additional things. And we start to question, wait, what is that? And as well, he did not change much about the world in itself, and I think his view of the world is childish, and there is no serious anything behind it, and he did not really change anything. And one of the greatest examples of that would be the fact that, first of all, Neji Hyuga has sacrificed himself to save Hinata and Naruto in the story. And what is one of the disappointing things about this is that we all know about what type of clan Hyuga is, and how Neji suffered. And Naruto, during this moment, asking Neji, why did you sacrifice yourself for Lady Hinata and for me? Like, you were going to change the Hyuga clan, etc. But what that does it at last teach us? That Hyuga clan's enslavement is so good that Neji Hyuga, that could have had potential to be a legendary ninja, was pretty much enslaved. Anyone, we have seen how Neji was in his younger period. He beat the crap out of Hinata. He was one of the strongest characters in the early stage of the show. And decline is how he's forgotten, basically, and made as a second or third rate character out of nowhere. And only thing that we can learn from that would be that the Hyuga clan's enslavement system is so good that in case of Neji it was successful, and the branch line is pretty much successfully enslaved. And what do we see? What type of changes did Naruto do? Did anyone saw that about this branch house pro issue about etc.? Sure, Naruto marries Hinata, but suddenly his reincarnation of this legendary being, full master of nine tails, this and that and that, and so what if Hyuga clan allowed him to marry Hinata? What a big deal is. In fact, that's a political and logical decision of the clan, but that does not point to changes or anything. Basically, his death was just meaningless, and that's the only logical lesson that we can learn from him. But at the same time, it's hard to believe that's the Neji we know, especially when Neji has ninjutsus that could have even deflected that attack or could have saved them, Naruto and Hinata, without sacrificing himself. But no, we see what we see. Fine. In other aspects as well, Naruto's conversation with different people and how he's able to convince them, as if that debates and conversation aren't really going to achieve anything. We see Ninja World plagued by suffering, plagued by destruction, and plagued by death. And what his conversation is changed. He's like, his obsession with Sasuke and this nonsense that we see in the entire story. And since I mentioned Sasuke, it's interesting to talk about Sasuke and why exactly is he alive in the first place. Because Sasuke fights Deidara, and if you look at Deidara, and I'm going to look it up right now as well, Sasuke versus Deidara, you see first of all these videos and these conversations about how Sasuke fought Deidara, some pictures there, then some discussions as how that exactly happened. But if you actually look at the fight, it does not make any sense how Sasuke really survived that fight in the first place. Because no matter what you want to say about Deidara, he's a top class ninja. He had experience confronting Itachi before. He had activated his ultimate art, which was his art of destruction. And Somehow Sasuke is able to summon a snake, hide inside a snake, and voila, survive. Why? How? That innermost destructive power, and somehow is fine inside of a snake or whatever. Like, that doesn't make any sense. How did he survive that exactly? And we see, for example, how Tobi is confronting Naruto. Their conversation makes Tobi change his mind somehow, and Nagato changes his mind as well. And who is Nagato exactly? First of all, what the hell? Apparently, carrying a Rinnegan of Uchiha Madara, this random kid out of nowhere, who is Uzumaki. And the way this whole ordeal is made. First of all, since it's established that Akatsuki wants this, Akatsuki needs 8 tails and 9 tails. We learn that there, and we understand there are many other ways to get these things. But Tobi declares a forced ninja war. Why exactly? If your target is 9 tails and 8 tails to activate the project Tsukunome, why would you go to force ninja war? Sort of out of nowhere introduction of so many ninjas that just appeared out of nowhere, just to feel them get. And what the power dynamic of this world? Like, for example, in this world we have nuclear weapons that can destroy cities, potential continents, and etc. easily. So in this world of Naruto, these incredibly powerful beings are summoned from dead. Some random characters, not random but legendary characters, in fact, and some random characters as well. And the support of living and alive are confronting each other. And we see basically Madara Uchiha being summoned. It's questionable if Madara Uchiha is summoned, why is exactly in that specific form that he was in? Because we see in a earlier stages that he should have been looked different based on how, at least how I understand it, jutsu. But okay, even if that's true. Now, the power levels of Ninja World, when we all understand that power levels of Ninja World, there are Kage level, etc., etc. Powers, and Kage levels are generally considered like superior and one of the greatest powers, fighting powers. So we see Uchiha Madara confronting 5 Kages, and he's just playing with them as he would play with children. And you're shocked, of course, and everyone is shocked. And later, this and that happens, and sort of a setup is made for a great villain, which turns out to be Uchiha Madara. And his power is so enormous that he just playing with 5 Kages. So I don't know what else can we say. I mean, what anyone can say about it. It's ridiculous power already. And he becomes 10-tail Jinchuriki. He gets all sorts of power upgrades, which makes no one understands how powerful he is on the god level character. And suddenly, out of nowhere, it appears that Black Zetsu is the main mastermind of the entire story. That was scheming and planning everything for 10,000 years and thousands of years, apparently, to bring his mother. One hell of a mother fetish, right? Every 1,000-year conspiracy to bring your mother back. What? And who appears? One of the that's supposed to be even more powerful than Madara Uchiha, right? Because she turns out to be the final mastermind. This appears this random woman. No one knows who she is. Every other character is set behind. Madara Uchiha is destroyed. We see this character. Who is she, first of all? This power. What type of power does she have? Because we don't understand how powerful Madara Uchiha was in the first place, and this random character that appears and is never mentioned, never hinted that exists in the first place, appears. And we see how Team 7 and this Kaguya are confronting each other. Now, how many person in Team 7 are even Kage level or above Kage level? We could say yes, Sasuke and Naruto at the point probably were above Kage level, but so we see this whole of a joke scenario, and it's just it was not just a single factor that contributed to downfall of Madara Uchiha. Yes, there he was his blind arrogance and etc. as well. But to see him just disappear that way, it's sort of hard pill to swallow in the sense that we know who Madara Uchiha is. We have seen, in a couple episodes before, we've seen his power. He's able to recast reanimation jutsu. He's able to play to death with 5 Kages. He's playing them like we play with children. He's doing all crazy things, like to the point where entire ninja world and everyone that watched this story was like, oh, what are we even seeing? What is this? And we clearly understand that he has long have surpassed Hashirama, but that's not enough apparently, and he's cast aside as apparently just a cannon fodder, which is fine. But even if you look at the fight, how Kaguya is defeated, what a choke is that? Don't think it was sort of a serious, but maybe the message, if you, because Author has ultimate power in the end of the day, but what Author itself has set up, Madara was not a character that could have been defeated that easily, especially in his form. So apparently the Black Zetsu is one of the most powerful masterminds that's able to sneak attack Madara Uchiha, but somehow he starts to, when Kaguya is summoned, he starts to play sort of a lesser role. How? And yeah, there is no much explanation. Not a lot of things make sense. Like, since when did Black Zetsu become this final super mastermind that says this mother complex going to summon his mother? There is no much, to me at least. Yeah, a lot of factors contribute to the downfall of Madara Uchiha, but either he should not have been summoned in the first place, or should not have been defeated that way with that nonsensical. But in fact, his power upgrades were so ridiculous that it's hard for me to imagine even Kaguya in a one-on-one fight could beat Madara Uchiha. Forget Kaguya. I mean, everyone else, like who? But yeah, that's how it is. Also, on the interesting plot twists, we all know Jiraiya Sensei and the Perry Sage, as Naruto would call him. He doesn't appear. Everyone expects that Perry Sage would appear, some sort of reconciliation, but no, he doesn't appear. And what is interesting, why doesn't he appear in the first place? Why is legendary Sanin just cast aside? Just vanished. Oh, he's under the sea? Let's remember, everyone, how exactly Pain has killed him and where exactly. And let's remember who Kisame is. I think Akatsuki had a quite good swimmer. A real shark, by the way. Humanoid shark. That could have easily brought back his body if needed. But no, Akatsuki organization does not bother to reanimate legendary Sanin, while they are willing to reanimate Asuma and some random characters. Far weaker than Jiraiya would have been. So Jiraiya is not brought back. Why? It's not as obvious, ridiculous. Even if you look at, first of all, battle side, why Force Ninja War is necessary? That's the first question. And if the war is directed toward that way, what? You know how the world look like? It's like you have, everyone was confused, like what most ninjas are going to do. What the hell is that level of scale of power? That's not something ninjas have to be. That's a Kage level minimum requirement to be there in the first place. Because you have to be minimum Kage level, but the fight reached a certain point that you have to be minimum Kage level just to don't die accidentally. You know, when Madara summons his Nijutsu, creates this gigantic titan that walks. You have to be minimum Kage level basically to dodge and not be accidentally killed by it. So, what happens to Jiraiya Sensei? Where is Jiraiya? No, apparently Jiraiya is not important. He just disappears, and why he disappears, I don't know. No one knows. It's just how author wished it, but this does not make a sense. Just like I don't think the defeat of Uchiha Madara that way made any sense. So there are a lot of other things as well that we could talk about. For example, it would be Orochimaru. If Orochimaru, and when Orochimaru appears, why is he that way exactly? That's so unlike for Orochimaru. And by the way, what Kabuto has achieved, and for him to be treated that way. We can talk about a lot of other things, but let's focus on politics and philosophy, which I want to briefly discuss as well. First of all, there's this idea of Wheel of Fire, which is sort of I think an extreme ideology. So if we look at it realistically, the slaughter and destruction of Chiha clan, slaughter and destruction of Senju clan, while the government is, so politics is run by certain few old people, basically. It reminds me of something. It reminds me of dictatorship. It reminds me of basically that Naruto did not change much. That's what I'm saying. It reminds me of basically its evil form of rule, where children are forced by elderly to take part in slaughtering their parents, and I have Itachi in my mind. Clearly has shown that. And any ideology that forces that type of thing is evil. In its sense, what even if Uchiha was rebelling, what did random children and elderly had to do with it? It's antithetical to the philosophy, for example, which famously states that wars and conflicts are usually initiated by few people, and to consider entire clan, entire sort of people deserving of elimination for crimes of few is against justice, is against common sense, and that's basically the politics of the ninja village, for example, and the main focus of the entire story is Konoha village. If you look at the Konoha village, it's fundamentally ruled by powerful families. For example, Hyuga clan, which has a literal slavery system in its own family, which is perfectly accepted, while we see how, for example, Neji Hyuga despises it and how every branch member actually despises this form of slavery. So what did Naruto do toward these things? And we have other clans as well, the Shimura and etc. Whatever, Sarutobi. I mean, and these clans in etc. Clearly are not treated equally, and there are random families and etc. as well. It's also interesting in the entire story. There is a gigantic statue of every Hokage. There is a fucking statue of fourth Hokage, and there is this Naruto. Who's okay? Let's say he did not have his father's last name. Everyone in the village knew that Kushina and the fourth Hokage basically got married, and they. How come no one noticed? First of all, Naruto looks like his father in the first place. How come no one understands that he is son of a fourth Hokage, and maybe because of that he would have been treated better? But how come no one noticed it? Come on, especially he has such unique looks. No one noticed it for whatever reason. Like, no one can even think of the fact that he is son of a fourth Hokage and Kushina. No one noticed it. Families pretty much rule basically. Son of a Hokage becomes a Hokage. Son of a family head becomes a family head. Shop owner, son of a shop owner becomes a shop owner. Whatever. Like, this is continuous thing what we see in the entire story, and maybe that's quite interesting thing because it's like a sort of a family rule system, which shows us that exactly, and Hyuga Clan is perfect representation of that, and maybe that's what our author wanted us to see, that this perfect slavery system that's so masterful and so etc. that even rebellious spirit and potential spirit is full of potential, spirit so powerful can be perfectly enslaved. And I think in a sense that author probably wanted us to see that in that sense, but I don't think Naruto is a hero, especially not an underdog. Definitely not an underdog. Come on. If Naruto is underdog of that story, then what is underdog? I don't even know. I mean, what are we even talking about? I mean, if he's an underdog, then what are you? Or what are we? Come on, it's a joke. About the philosophy, it's interesting about the Project Tsukunome or Project Tsukomi. Basically, to cast this eternal illusion, to destroy the suffering of the ninja world where everyone suffers. It is such an interesting concept. It is sort of something that is debated even in real life. Here's the two things I have in my mind right now. There is a theory basically. A higher civilizations would create such advanced computers where that civilization would connect itself directly to the world they invented. Basically, the world inside the game. So, and that civilization in the game would create another civilization inside of the game, and endless loop could be followed. So, potentially, what I'm talking about and what we are seeing here is that sort of a attempt to create an imaginary world within an imaginary world where each individual person can imagine whatever they want and live that life. And that plan is such an interesting plan because in that world there is no suffering and you can be whatever you want to be in that world. You can dream about it, you can exactly live the life you want to be, and we see that's how certain people are dreaming. Maybe that entire ending of a story and things I'm criticizing in this critiquing is just a bad dream of some of the main house elder. But yeah, that's actually one of the theory that Madara actually didn't lose, but everything we see is imagination of one person. But it's interesting that that's the plan itself is such an interesting plan. Someone were to come to this world right now and tell you that we will connect you to this machine, for example, and you can be whatever you want in that world. Like, you can drive Ferraris if you want to drive Ferraris. You can live in a castle if you want to live in a castle. You can fly if you want to fly. You can be whatever and whoever you want to be. You can be a fucking dragon if you want to be and fly high in skies or whatever, and just connect to it, and we will take something in exchange, but you will live quite long life in that world. I think many would agree, and I think that offer is quite tempting for many, because if you look at most people's reality is just reality. Oh, life is life. Homo homini lupus. In English it would be the man is wolf to another man. That's the reality of the world we live in. And what Madara was saying is that look at the world. In a certain sense, what makes Madara's idea of the, even if his plan is wrong, and I'm not disputing, there was no moment of appreciation about the plan of Madara and where he was coming from exactly. Comment down below what you think about the world of Naruto. Do you agree about the plot holes that I have shared during this conversation, or just think that it was just very natural things that have happened? And yeah, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already.